was talking about it last night, and I want to scrub through this Kamala Harris interview real quick because she was on that business podcast. What's the name of this? Diary of a CEO. Really, really popular platform trying to sell a book, and she said a lot of things. Let me see. Worst thing you faced in your career. Let's scrub through this a little bit.
Give me some context there. What does that mean in reality?
Well, for a while, I specialized in child sexual assault, which is about the most horrendous of abuse and crime.
When does that decision get made in your career?
Yeah.
And at what point in this journey did you realize that you wanted to be president of the United States? Like, was there a lunch or a dinner you had with Doug? When does that decision get made in your career?
It was when I was in the Senate.
Yeah.
I ran into a friend who came up. Doug and I were at basically a family table in a local restaurant eating. And he said to me, "You should run for president."
Why is her neck so old? How old is Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris age. She's only 61. Her neck should not look like it's 87. She got an 87-year-old's neck. Why does her neck? And listen, I hate to be the person that point out a bunch of little individual things, but I just got to ask the question, why the fuck is her neck so old?
In a local restaurant eating, and he said to me, "You should run for president."
She got a bodybuilder's neck. What's wrong with her neck? Why is her neck so old? And listen, I've never been diagnosed with anything. This ain't ADHD or anything like that. I'm just trying to understand what the fuck is going on. She's 61. She has an 83-year-old woman's neck. Can't you fix that? Don't they do skin pulls or something like that? Because it's a lot of women that fix their neck. I don't know, bro. I don't know. It's really crazy. It's like a really old neck. She got a regular woman's face with an old woman's neck. I don't know what that is.
And it had not occurred to me until then. It had not occurred to me to run for president. There are people who are born thinking they're going to be president. There are people who look in the mirror every day and see a president.
I can't stop looking at her neck. That's maybe why she's doing like this. I can't stop her neck.
I was not one of those people. But then the thought, it kind of germinated. And then, of course, being vice president and doing the work of vice president of the United States, I met with over 150 world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, and kings. I've negotiated very important deals and
like what?
Issues on behalf of the American people. I've spent countless hours, not only in the Oval Office, but the Situation Room and traveling around the world. And so in those 107 days, I was fully aware of not only the importance of the job, but fully aware that I had the experience and knowledge to be able to do it effectively.
You know what's so funny about this? I remember a video where let me see. Let me see if I can find it. Was it Dave Chappelle? Harris talks going to be president, or was it Kevin Hart? It was somebody, and I don't remember, where they said today, was it Dave? Yep. And this was a long time ago. Hold on, he said it.
And sitting in the dressing room is Gavin Newsom, who at the time was the mayor of San Francisco, but now he's the governor of California. And sitting next to him was Kamala Harris, who at the time was the DA of San Francisco, now she's the senator from California that's front running on the Democratic ticket.
Now remember, Dave Chappelle is telling this story, and he's saying that Gavin Newsom was the mayor and Kamala Harris was the district attorney. Now, I know personally from talking to politicians that now obviously we revisiting this after she's on Diary of a CEO and her asking her, hey, when did you think that you would, ever become president of the United States of America? And she's talking about, well, I was a senator about to run for president and all of this other type of stuff. But then I'm sitting there and I'm recalling my memory because I got a crazy fucking memory. It's almost like when people say stuff to me, certain key words lock in my mentality, and then I can go back and revisit certain things, and then I compare and contrast. And when I hear somebody say something in present time, it's like, wait a minute, that's different than the story that Dave Chappelle told. Dave Chappelle said that you was the district attorney and Gavin Newsom was the mayor, and you said that I'm gonna be president of the United States of America one day. It's crazy. Like, I can remember stuff and I could just remember certain things that people say and it just sticks with me. It just sticks in my head. You know what I'm saying? So when people try to sell a narrative or they try to paint a picture, it's like, you lying. You're lying. You're lying.
Sitting next to Al Gore was the guys from Google, Sergey, and I don't know how to say these. At some point, Kamala Harris says to me, she goes, a friend of mine is announcing his candidacy for president tomorrow. I was certain of it. He sees me, and when he sees me, he looks over, he goes, Dave Chappelle. And Obama did me the same way I did Prince Charles. He dapped me up. He said in my ear, I got your message. And I had a chance to go to the last debate on the Democratic ticket, and I went. It was Barack Obama, John Edwards, and Hillary Clinton. Now, Obama's a lot taller than Edwards and Clinton, and he had the center podium. And I was sitting in the audience like,
man, and it was somebody else that said it. It was somebody else that said that they had walked in a room, and it was Kamala Harris, it was this person, and it was this person. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it because I remember. And I was thinking to myself, oh, so they've been plotting this for a long time. Because when I was talking to the former mayor of Detroit, Kwame Kilpatrick, he told me, he said, listen, bro, they got a bullpen. And I said, what do you mean they got a bullpen? He said, they got a bullpen. And I said, what's a bullpen? He said, a bullpen is a list of people that they're looking to promote and that they have in their back pocket because they know that the person has a chance, and they're trying to push these people and they're grooming them to become whatever it is, play whatever role that they play in or whatever. And he said that, there's a bullpen. He said before he had got caught up in a bunch of stuff and before he got caught up in his situation, that he was in a bullpen and he remembers this person, he remembers that person, so on and so forth. And so I'm like, wow, really? He said, yeah, it's a bullpen. And they already have it planned out 10, 15, 16, sometimes 20, 25, 30 years from now. They already have planned out who they want to become a prominent figure and who they want to play certain roles in politics. So when I see this type of shit and I see them saying stuff like, oh, no, I didn't know that I was going to become president. And it just surprised me that Biden decided that he was going to run. I call 100% bullshit because you can't tell me that they don't have this thing planned and it was just a surprise that Biden just so happened to announce that he is going to be running for president of the United States of America again, and nobody knew. Obama didn't know, Kamala Harris didn't know, nobody didn't know. Everybody is just confused, and it's not a part of a system that's then generating. I just don't believe none of this stuff, man.
I mean, this is one of the things. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine downstairs, Lucy Mangini, who sat out there, and we were talking about this idea of like, does imposter syndrome ever leave you? And imposter syndrome is a bit of a loaded term, but you kind of assume that people in higher places than you are have some like genetic or mental or some gift. They have all the answers. But the higher you climb, with your own continued naivety, you start to suspect that no one really is genetically gifted or like has some superpower that you don't have.
Right.
I agree, Maria.
And I'm wondering if you've experienced that in your career, where the higher you've climbed, you realize that actually everybody up here is like, I'm like that, like, or I'm at least on their level. Have you had that experience in your career?
Yes, I have. But I've also had the imposter syndrome experience, and that was when I was first elected DA. And
no, it wasn't Judge Joe Brown that I heard it from. I heard it from, they said they had walked into a room with a bunch of other people, and Kamala Harris was like, oh, you know, I'm going to be president one day or something like that. Was it Charlemagne? It was somebody. I'll find it.
And I challenged then the incumbent. I started out at 6 points in the polls, which is 6 out of 100. Yeah. People recently asked me, about polls. Well, if I listened to polls, I would have never run for my first office, and therefore we wouldn't be having this interview probably. And I won, and it was not expected that I would, at least when I jumped in the race. And there I was sitting in the office, and I thought, oh my God, I'm now the elected DA of a major city in the United States. In hindsight, we call it imposter syndrome. To your point, maybe it is a very loaded term, because I think there's nothing wrong with having, and I think that there's a lot that is good with having a certain level of humility. Mm-hmm. And in particular, when the people have vested you with great power, right? To understand it's not about you, right? I think that is part and parcel of what we call imposter syndrome, or who has it. I think often it is because they understand how serious the job is on behalf of others.
Yeah.
And I applaud a bit of humility, honest humility, not feigned humility.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are plenty of people that are, self-deprecating for the sake of the shtick of it all.
Yeah.
But yes, to your point,
does that ever
the higher you go, it does. It does, because the more you're exposed to being, the more you're in the rooms with the people who otherwise feel untouchable, the more you understand that they are not untouchable.
Yeah. It's a polite way of putting it.
Let me see something. Why she dropped out of the 2019 race?
What's the full context behind the scenes?
There was a lot there. Mostly we ran out of money.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot of lessons, obviously, about running. But that was the main reason.
And at some point you get a call from Mr. President.
I got a call from then nominee, Democratic nominee, Joe Biden. We FaceTimed. It was during the height of COVID.
Yeah.
And he asked me to be his running mate. And it was a great honor, and I was honored to do it.
Did you have any inclination before that moment that he was going to ask you? Had there been like a side conversation?
So, no, I had an interview. And it was like something out of a spy movie, where I had my assistant drove me to one location. This was in D.C. And then it was a mall. And then I got out of that car to get in another car. That was because the press were watching everything to see there was a short list that was out, who was going to be. So we had to do this whole clandestine thing. And then I got into another car being driven by one of his assistants. And then we went to this, this very circuitous route to a house. And then through the back door, the windows were closed, the shades were closed. And I had my interview. Went back because Doug and I were in our apartment in D.C. because I was senator at the time. And again, height of COVID. Then the press vans were.
I didn't even know that they had I thought that the phones and stuff like that for people that were high level ranking officials that ultimately was running for president of the United States of America and that had Secret Service and stuff like that. I thought that type of stuff, they couldn't use.
Were parked out front, and we would just want to go for a walk. Remember, during COVID, everyone just wanted to get some fresh air. They must have thought we couldn't see them. They were like in unmarked vans. So from time to time, I just walked up to them and say, "Look, we're going to get some coffee. Can I bring you anything back? We'll be right back." Right? the day I actually got the call from Joe Biden asking me to run with him was the same day earlier where one of my girlfriends has a house in Virginia, and it was the end of summer, and she had all these beautiful end of summer tomatoes. I like to cook. She brought me this big box of tomatoes, and I was going to make a bunch of marinara and freeze it. Then I get the call from him. I said, yes, of course. And I don't know, it felt like within seconds, a parade of people walk into our apartment with a parade of binders, sit down, everyone's in masks, to tell us, okay, this is what the campaign is going to be. And because I hate to waste food, every one of them walked out with me handing them tomatoes.
What the fuck am I listening to, bro? Honestly, man, like there could not be any more of an inauthentic person. And I know I'm messing up my potential for being able to interview certain people and all of that, but don't give a fuck, man. This is so exhausting. Now I remember why she didn't get elected in the first place. Good grief. I want to get to, I haven't listened to the part where she was talking about going on Joe Rogan. So let's skip to that.
The big podcasters in the world like Joe Rogan, etc., and Alex Cooper, I know whose show you went on as part of your campaign. The media landscape is changing before our eyes.
Rapidly.
You're sat in a set now, you're the Madam Vice President. You're sat in effectively my kitchen, my old kitchen where they started, you know? And that's crazy. Like 20 years ago, the thought that you'd come to my kitchen is such a crazy thing. But it's in part now because of the democratization of these platforms, and creating the content is much cheaper. And we have distribution now across these big platforms. Many would say that it changed the course of the election, podcasting. Not just the podcast you did or didn't go on, but just the conversations that take place on these podcasts. And as I have to say, you know, as podcasters, we don't have the same rigor as traditional journalists, who I respect a lot. We don't have the same teams and real-time fact, all those kinds of things. Podcasting, there was lots of conversation around you going on Joe Rogan's show or not going on Joe Rogan's show. What is the truth there for anyone that hasn't yet read the book? Because Trump did like 100 million views on Joe Rogan's show. And in 3 hours sat there getting to know Trump, and for better or for worse, you probably walked away from that conversation feeling like you knew who he was.
I wanted to do Joe Rogan's show.
Cap.
And there was a lot of games being played.
Cap.
But I wanted to do Joe Rogan's show. I think podcasting is a very powerful medium.
Cap. They avoided Joe Rogan like the plague. Joe Rogan extended an opportunity for both of them to come on the platform. Trump actually had a rally in Michigan, and Barron told him that he needed to do Joe Rogan. He wound up being super late to the rally in Michigan because he talked to the Joe Rogan for 3 hours. And counter, what they decided to do is they decided to go on Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe was facing a bunch of bullshit after he had reached the, Michelle. Oh, yes, Michelle. Hey, Michelle. Oh, Michelle. No. Michelle. Hold on. Let me turn on Instagram. Make sure that the people hear me on Instagram, because I know that they think they keep saying that I keep going to the game with my stylist, but I love you, Michelle. So when Shannon Sharpe had got into some shit with that, and we should have already knew that the lawsuit was coming after that bullshit because he was just doing too much. They're anti, because Cat Williams' interview had bust out. That was busting. So Shannon Sharpe had to wave from the black podcasters' perspective and stuff like that. So he was hitting on all cylinders, right? And so because they didn't want to face no real, this is what was happening during that campaign, because I remember this, I covered everything every day. And I largely credit it with, my vigorousness to cover everything campaign related. That really probably gave me a big boost when it came to my subscribers and my growth and visibility and all of that. Michelle, whatever her name is, Kamala Harris, only wanted to do 20-minute interviews. Kamala Harris, whether she was on Fox News, she would not go to any opposing platforms, because anytime they would ask her something like, hey, you was the border czar, why wouldn't you cover what was happening at the border? Hey, you know what I'm saying? You said you put the greens in the tub. What the fuck is that shit? Anytime anybody questioned her about anything, her team would step in and say, hey, so she would arrive to these interviews, because Brett Bauer said it. She would arrive to the interviews, even with the big platforms like Fox News. She would arrive 8 minutes late, say you only got, whatever, 19 minutes to interview me, and then I'm up out of there. But Trump did a 3-fucking-hour interview with Joe Rogan. And I suspect that when Trump did that 3-hour interview with Joe Rogan, ain't no way in the world she can come in there for 20 minutes. Ain't no way in the world that she can come in there for 20 minutes, right? And so she wanted, her and her team and her, they all wanted to control the narrative. They did not want to be authentic. They did not want to let people in. And so that's why they did. And they have shit to do with Joe Rogan being this or being that or not being authentic or none of that. It was all Trump and JD Vance was on the ops head. They was on every platform. They would pull up to MSNBC. They pulled up to CNN. They pull up to Joe Rogan. Trump and them, they was doing interviews, and JD Vance was knocking it out the fucking park every single day. You didn't even see them pull up to Fox News until, and when they finally started doing interviews with other people, it was both her and Tim Walz together. He had to handhold her. And that's when they started saying he got stolen valor and all of this other stuff.
For people to get information. And to your point, a lot of people, that is a main source of information. And it's important for us to support that.
Joe says you wanted him to come to you, which is very un-Joe-like in terms of he doesn't really travel. In hindsight,
see,
do you wish you'd gone and done the show for 3 hours at his studio? In hindsight,
really, it just would be what were we giving up? I wanted to do his show, and a lot of people advised me not to do his show because they assumed, as it turned out to be correct, that he was supporting Trump and that it would not be a productive piece.
That's cap. Joe had reserved his vote, and he said he wanted to talk to both candidates and be authentic. He grilled Trump. And they sat there for 3 hours, and it wasn't any kind of predisposition on what he could and couldn't ask. And now she talking about, it's what would we get out of it? What do you mean? What would you get out of it?
For me, but just like when I went on Fox News with Bret Baier, my perspective was they may have their bias, but there are people that listen who are open-minded, and I'm going to go there and give them a chance to get to know me and give me a chance to make my case to them. So that was my perspective on Joe Rogan, just like it was my perspective on Fox. There was a lot of games being played around the scheduling, and it didn't happen. I don't have anything against, certainly not against the people who turn on to Joe Rogan and would love.
Joe would have moved hell and high water to make sure she was accommodated if she had came to that studio. A lot of games being played with the schedule. Get the fuck out of here, bro.
To be able to talk with them in a direct manner, as I wanted to during the campaign.
Do you, in hindsight, wish you just put your foot down and said, I'm going to go do it?
I don't know if it would have made a difference.
So it was her choice.
But yeah, no, I wanted to do it. So let me just say that, right? So I wanted to do it, and it would have been great to do, and I think it would have been helpful to do.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's just, the issue, it was really about what's the trade-off in terms of votes and where I spend my time. Do I spend my time traveling for 5 hours and back versus being for that period of time in a swing state? And that was the trade-off.
I guess it goes to the point.
So it wasn't about I don't want to do Joe Rogan, or believe me, at that point in a campaign, it's not about, is somebody coming to me or me going to them. I could care less about that. Pride is not associated with it.
It is more about.
It is literally
Trade-off.
about return on investment.
Okay, and this goes to
Of
our point about
time.
efficiency earlier.
Yeah,
and, like,
it's exactly right.
So you telling me with Trump doing 100 million views on Joe Rogan and him having the biggest platform that you could have went on at the time, you're telling me that you would have rather did a 15, 20,000 person rally at some random bumblefuck place than reach 100 million people, literally almost a third of the United States of America. Instead, you would have rather just went to a little simple rally. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Ain't nobody this stupid. Ain't nobody gonna sit here, man. Y'all can't gaslight me, bro. Trying to plug up my Mac. You're not gonna gaslight me, bro. And you're not gonna gaslight me. Ain't no fucking way in the world. If I'm looking to become president of the United States of America, I'm gonna have a list of all of the biggest podcasts, and I'm gonna just work my way on down the list. I'm gonna work my way on down the list. Ain't nobody that crazy. If your campaign manager advised you to do anything different than that, that's insane.
There's only one candidate. So where am I spending my time to get the greatest return on the investment?
If I was in charge of your campaign, I would have 100% put you in that environment. And even when I look at the trade-off, in part because someone like me, and I consider myself to be like genuinely really objective.
Yeah.
And my friends know me as being extreme, not just objective on camera, but objective in my personal life.
Yeah.
I would have, when you see a certain environment present someone in a certain way, you really, like the thing that can burst that bubble is seeing that person go into that environment. And like when I saw you on Fox News, I watched that interview as well. I actually think it strengthens your supporters, and actually those independents who are in that space too can get a feel for you. So I would have loved to see it. And I actually think, I hope in this next election cycle, when is it, 2028? I really would love to see both sides going to both sides. And I actually think that's happening now, going into those environments. I do also tend to think that Joe would have been fair.
Well, that's why I wanted to do it. I had to assume that was possible. And either way, he's very popular.
I would have loved to watch that interaction.
I regret that we didn't do it.